All right, we are live. I am pretty sure. Good. Oh, whoops! I didn't send the announcements out. My bad. We're gonna do this live then. Okay. Let's howdy, Xavier. Good to see you in the chat. Yeah, sorry guys. Should have done this first thing, but I got distracted by other things. Let's see. Yet another ER stream. Yeah, you guys on Discord know the drill at this point. And let's see. Let's see. As the word. Let's how do we frame this today? God, my Twitter feed. Well, my Twitter, not using the new name. Feed is broken because I can't see No, let's say is stuck on the welcome screen for whatever reason, for God knows what reason. Get back to more Elden Ring. Let's get back to dying in more Elden Ring. Let's see. I'm sure my social me. Sure the magic coder people will fix. Surely. There we go. Aye. Let's see. What are you going to put aside your childish things and put down these little video games? Well, I do tell you, my good sir, I have long since done away with childish things, including the concern about childish things. Things being childish. Now, where is... There we go. There we are. There we go. Yeah, so we got a lot that obviously the Broom Bear thing. The Broom Bear thing is important, but now I'm like, oh, do I add it to Karya yet, or do I wait until after we do the Farm Azula stuff? Because I'm definitely putting in the Farm Azula stuff. Now here's the problem I have with my Farm Azula stuff. Can I show it? Yeah, I can show it to you guys here. The wrong one. Is this one showing now? No. How about this one? No, it's not showing it. Unfortunate. Okay, I think I have to manually. Yeah, I have to manually. Okay. So here we go. As we can see here, there is a lot on Farm Azula. Like, it's 25 pages, 26 pages. And, like, I've only got the draft up to here. Now, I'm probably going to delete the demi-human stuff. Like, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, what is it adding to this thesis? I think it might be better if I included it as like a separate thing, because I'm going to be like talking about so much stuff. Like, do I really want to talk about the idea that, you know, beastmen and humans are like screwing each other in FA and pumping out you know, demi-humans at one point? Like, do I really want to go to that rabbit hole here, or is it better if I have it as a separate supplementary that will go somewhere after Farm Azula and before other things? I don't know. I have to think that one over, but I think I'm gonna cut it. I just think this thing is so long as is. Like, I think I have to start cutting stuff and separating it out. Yeah, the whole stuff with Florisax and Bale and Jagged Peak and all that stuff, and then all the stuff with the yeah, this is what I was talking about the other day with the Draconic Smithing Stones and all that stuff. So all these Smithing Stone, well, specifically somber Smithing Stone 9s, right? Face truly whimsy pilled joy cell. So anyway, the Draconic Smithing Stone stuff, like, we see a little bit in Dragon Barrow, as we would expect. One in Lake of Rot, which I think is connected to Karya, because as we'll see, a lot in Mountaintops areas. So we got like one in the Snow Valley ruins, one in Yellow and East Tunnel. I'm pretty sure this is one is like, obviously it came from the mine, but like growing stuff. Two in the consecrated snowfield in general, and one from the invisible teardrop scarab in the snowfield. Then a bunch of Far Missoula, no shocker there. And then somber miner's bell bearing lets you sell them basically. I think this is generally trying to tell us that ancient dragons were in the area, which again, I think it might just be dragons in general. So it could also include wyverns possibly, but I think it's supposed to just be ancient dragons, period. Which it makes sense because the idea would probably be the wyverns to get pushed off the mountaintops. So they move into areas, obviously a bit in the mountaintops themselves, but mostly we see them in the consecrated snowfields, right? So that would be the idea. And obviously we have the cave there to show that they were definitely in that area, at least at one point. And then I would assume the idea would be that the ancient dragons and the regular dragons are basically fighting and slaughter each other, but then the farm colonies move in, so Castle Soul gets established and stuff like that. And the ancient dragons basically hold off. They're like, okay, you guys can try to finish hunting down these last buggers. They're, you know, really tricky and hiding. And as we see with like, I want to say like Bjorsax or something, but I forget what's his face is named. The freezing fog guy. One is growing out of a wall in a niece. Oh, really? I do not remember this. In the ruins or the tunnel? Oh no, you're talking about the stone. Yeah. One is growing. Yeah. The stone. Yeah. I thought you were talking about the dragon itself. I was like, I don't remember there being a dragon corpse in there, but no. You're talking about the draconic stone. Okay. Yeah. So we do have one there. But like the point that I'm trying to make is that like, I think that there's a very clear, you know, correlation with all this, but that I'm going to have to now include in this Far Missoula stuff, because we're talking about all the Bale things here, so this will definitely be relevant. Also, we get a few in Halig Tree and Elphiel, which again, this makes sense. There's also a few things from the Halig Tree / Snowfield that you can find in Mogwin stuff, which again, it just makes sense. There's going to be a little bit of overlap because there's the idea that these areas are indirectly connected. I think it's the same idea with the Draconic Smithing Stone in Lake of Rot. There's some overlap with the astrologer village and stuff like that. We've already established this idea of like polar stones basically changing hands with the Noxtella crowd, but with Incaria. So like if that's happening, it wouldn't be that surprising to see a draconic stone there. So I think that one. Borealis. Okay, yeah, there he is. I kept wanting to say like Bjorn. I'm like, why? No, that's Demon Souls. But yeah, Borealis. That's right, like Aurora Borealis. Okay. There we go. Yeah, and this I think we've already talked to everything we needed to in Nomadic Merchant, so I think we're done here. So I think we can cross that off. Obviously there's stuff to talk about with the various mausoleum people, but I think we restrict that to Mikola. Mikola's gonna be, I don't know, chat. I think Mikola's gonna be a monster. Like, I think Mikola gets past 30 pages. I think if it was just base game Mikola, it would be under, but I think we also have to include all the stuff from the DLC. I think that blows it up even larger. I think I can save space by not going into details about a lot of the characters that we meet in the DLC, like Dane and Letta and stuff like that. Freya, etc., right? But it's gonna be a little much, I feel, with Mikola. Bjorksack, Scourge of Eardrums. Yeah, he does that loud roar every time you're going through there, right, with the fog and stuff. Do I mention this in Giant War? No, it wouldn't come up in Giant War because the Ancient Dragon War hasn't happened yet. Odds back would agree. It's a little much. No, I don't think I mentioned it. I think this has to tie into Farm Azula then. I'm trying to think. What other lightning stuff would be happening here? Oh, you know what? You know what? It would be like Castle Soul. I have to double check Giant War then. Maybe I've already mentioned it. Let's look. Let's have a look. See. Giant War. There we go. Fulgur. Oh, nope. Lightning. I don't mention the Fulgur blooms at all. Okay, then we have to include this then. This has to go in there. As much as I like this as an image, I feel like we don't need it when we have this already. Yeah, you get better look at the details on this one. Maybe if I did another angle, like something that wasn't straight up but slightly angled, I don't know, maybe that would ruin it. Yeah. Okay, so if that's not here, we have to include the flowers then. At the very least, I should mention... I think I should just mention it in general. But I think it definitely needs to get mentioned, mention the one here. The other one, it's like, okay, maybe the one at Castle Soul is connected to the more recent conflict. Also, is it just me or is it kind of yellow? That might just be me there. Yeah, I think that's just like an effect they add to the map. Yeah, little dots of like yellowish, brownish. I think that's just to make it look more mappy. No, yeah, because these would be guys who would fight and defend Ordina. Yeah. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So I'm pretty sure I mentioned the Fulgur blooms in Caria and stuff. I'll have to check all my articles now, make sure. Because I need to talk about that for sure. Sign of conflicts and stuff with the war, which makes sense. It would tie in with the derelict. It ties in with Ordina and stuff we talked about. It ties in with, of course, the catacomb here. Obviously, we have this catacomb here, which pretty sure has to connect to all the graveyards we see and stuff for people following the path to get to Miquella's Halig tree, right? Yeah, because it's all Ghost Flame and just cold. Ow. And then you have Melania's Rock people parking in here. Okay. Oh, boss already dead here, apparently. Okay. Okay, we have the Albinork Rise because Albinork... oh my god. Like, think about it. All this stuff I'd have to talk about for Miquella. And the Halig tree stuff. And then we have the stupid little, you know, hornblower guys. Like, thank God we're cutting the Melania stuff into a separate article, right? Like, holy... Oh, wait. Can we cheat? Let's see if we can cheat. How much loads in if we do it from here? More than you'd expect. Like, this definitely gets like a not bad from me. Even the giants in the background got themselves loaded here, so that's cool. All right, so yeah, Miquela's gonna be a trial, that and a half. I can already see it. Another reason why to put it off as long as possible, because oh boy. Like, not Rykard would be 10 times easier than that one. Plus, let's be honest, do we really want to read all this interesting analysis of Miquela just to see it get thrown away for a kind of romantic subplot? It's obviously much more than that, but it's like, god damn, I really don't want to talk about the DLC story to end things off. The longest walk for a Griffith reference in video game history, yeah. Oh, that's not the right direction. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. I think the most interesting thing for me that's left to like really cover, especially since this is relevant to Miquela, is probably the imagery up here, like the iconography. Like, okay. So like I said, Pharmazula stuff, Nox stuff, that stuff's mostly covered. Like I said, we just got a lot of this Bale thing and stuff. This is like mostly put together. Like I want to add some stuff. Like I want to make a point about like Ymir's Stardust thing. I think here would be a good place to bring it up and mention it. Like some of this stuff could move around in the future. I should admit, like if there was ever like an Elden Ring's beginning or Elden beginning, like whatever you'd call it, if there was ever that, for my articles, I could definitely see a case. Forgive me. I could definitely see a case where basically all of some of this, like some of the stuff about the Elden Ring and the crash landing, maybe even the Newman, it might even be like the Newman coming down. I could see all that getting moved, just to kind of like lessen some of the backstory we have to include here. Obviously I think that was Xavier who mentioned the stuff with the twirling thing. After confirming myself, it's like, yeah, I want to include that somewhere. This idea, I like this idea of like coining the order that Placky and his god were creating as essentially a Chronos order, where it was like an order around time, specifically the progression of time. And obviously you see with Placky, he can even do the reverse. So I think that's a good way to kind of frame it, considering everything like that we basically see result from their order, where it's like, oh yeah, things are changing, advancing, propagating, expanding, you know, all this thing that's like, you know, it's following along the march of time, right? Doing that. Yeah, I don't know how to end this, so that like so yeah, this is the vomit draft, so there's still a lot to add, change up, and move. And again, it's not even done yet. It still has to get the Bale stuff all written out. I'm going to have so many questions by the end of this, I just know it. Because I have to now like go through and be like, okay, here's the thing with Jagged Peak, and the thing with Bale, and the thing with everybody fighting, and goddamn the timeline on when exactly everyone did what, because we know that there was like Dragon Union was a process to some extent, but we also know that Placky was like big on like, you know, humans participating for it and things like that. So everything's gotta be brought in at some point. It's gonna be something, I can already say. All right, now let me show the iconography here, because it's up here. We have 3 of the Renala type statues here. Now here's my question. Are these witch statues meant to represent Renala? Are they meant to represent the 3 sisters? Are they meant to represent something else, right? Like, I have lots of questions because we have this here, but then there's a warp gate, right? Like, this doesn't go anywhere after a point. So like, someone built like this bridge to nowhere, and I think it's fair to ask, was that because the waygate, it was always designed with this waygate in mind, or did it actually go somewhere and it like fell into the ocean or something, right? So like the history of this specific gate before, if it had any history before the Haley tree, and if so, what, and why were these statues particularly used? Like, I could see this being stand-ins for Trina. Like, they were like, we don't really have a Trina statue, so how do we want to show Trina as like this saint of faith that's like kind of welcoming and has like, you know, a revelation to share with everyone who comes to see her. And it's like, oh, we'll use the witch statue with her like clutching the book up like she's gonna like give you a sermon or something, right? Like, so instead they take like an image that's meant to show like, you know, sorceress of knowledge and stuff with, you know, well, we can't even see it here, but you know, they would have the design related to primeval current and things like that, and they kind of just change it up, as it were. I am curious. So I think it's very hard to establish a Karya connection before Loretta and crew show up. And I find it hard to imagine that Loretta's doing all this for the Albinorix stuff. It's like, you know, where I'm gonna give like, you know, pay random respects to what's her face? Renala and crew. Renala and friends, Renala and sissies. As far as psychological profiles go, would you say it's fair to call Mikola a sociopath, or is it more up to say that he's just a good old-fashioned savior complex? Again, I don't think it's fair because I haven't done like a deep dive analysis, but if you're asking for like what my impressions of Mikola's character are from what I know, I would say I think he's definitely like Estrella 2.0. This person, well, okay, I can't say fully Estrella 2.0, right? Because I don't want to go like, I think there may definitely be a little bit of malice, or at the very least a sense of like, you just don't know how good you have it, so I'm gonna make you understand. Because yeah, the brainwashing thing's where it gets a little dicey, right? It's like how much, because Mikola has to know what he's doing is against the will of the people, that the people wouldn't do it, right? But is it something where it's like he just think it's like, oh, this will be easier, you'd eventually come around to my thinking anyway, or everyone's going to be happy this way, so he doesn't really think of his actions very malicious, at which point that's scary in its own right? Or is it more a matter of he knows, but he, you know, he thinks it's for the greater good and stuff like that, where he's like, you know what, this is like, you know, this is a little fucked up, but you know, I gotta do it because it's, you know, it's the better option for you than you having to be killed for getting my way, right? Like, we're all going to be together in this. I'd have to like, you know, really kind of, you know, like get down and like look at like everything Mikola does and take as a whole how I feel about, you know, his exact motivations for some of the more shady stuff he does. But generally, I do think that he falls under the line of being this person who's like, you know, why can't the world just be more kind? Like, the world is so unfair. It is so, you know, it's got all these problems and stuff like that. I just want to make the world a better place, right? I want to make it a better place for everyone, right? I want to make it so that way all the weak people can also enjoy this world as much as the strong people, right? And that seems to be his, like, everything revolves around that. And I think because of that, most of Mikola's character falls under that. Yeah, I have a savior complex. I'm the only person, like, I'm the only person that can actually make this world a better place for everybody. I'm the only one who has any hope of being able to be kind, because I am someone who is, again, you have to keep in mind, him and Melania are quote unquote born with vulnerabilities, weaknesses, you know, like deficiencies, right? Like, the idea is being that they are not the strong, so he's the only one who can, as one of, you know, the privileged, right, as one of these, you know, privileged demigod elites of Marika's order, he's the one of the only people that can empathize with the little guy, with people who are also weak and stuff like that. He understands both sides more than anybody, and he's someone who's been more desperate his whole life to try to rectify the discrepancies. So therefore, just everything in his life seems to revolve around this idea that like he is the only person in a position in the position to be able to essentially save the world with his unique power set, his unique position as a demigod and a liege, child of America, yada yada yada, you know, one with the great room, blah blah blah. And of course, being the only person with the, at least from his perspective, the background with which could possibly be able to understand and be able to actually lay out the groundwork for a better world for all those people. So that's where I think Miquela's character comes in. I think there's also a reason why he respects Radon so much, right? That ties into his, like, you know, his whole obsession with his brother, is because he sees in Radon someone who has all that strength and yet is kind regardless. So like for Miquela sees like a Radon as his Ubermensch. Like this is like the perfect man, right? Like the perfect human, you know, demigod, but you know, like the perfect human being, right? Someone who has all the strength in the world, but doesn't use it frivolously or abusively, right? Or tyrannically, right? Like all these things, right? And again, contrast to Miquela, who understands, this is one thing, the point they make is that Miquela knows that despite the fact that you know, he wants to make this world of like perfect equity, that cannot happen, because in order to impose his world of perfect equity and create it there, like just that fact it's being imposed is automatically putting a difference where he and his consort stand above everyone and everything else. So the idea being that, you know, he can never actually create that perfectly equitable world. It will always be him imposing that equitable world on everybody else, and he has to exist essentially outside of his own ideal framework, right? But this is what makes Radon such an ideal to him, because he's like, if the world was just filled with Radons and stuff like that, you know, everyone is strong and stuff like that, but they don't use their strength to oppress other people and things, like, then the world would be a better place. But unfortunately, you know, not all strong people are like Radon, right? And that's why he feels he needs to step in and make all the strong people behave that way. He's got a fixation on the content people's character for sure. Yeah, he's very judgmental. It's very clear. It's very clear that, you know, Miquela has a what's the word? He's your classic intellectual know-it-all, where, you know, if I was just made dictator for the world for the day, I would solve all the world's problems in a snap. Like, I know how to fix everything, right? I know how to make everything better for everybody. If you all just did exactly what I wanted. And it's like, well, you know, people, you know, the problem is that people are different. They have different ideas. Some of them have better intentions than others, but all of them have their own differences and reasons and justifications in doing things. And there's obviously different circumstances, stuff. Not everyone's born the same. Everyone's got different doing so, and that creates different motivations, right? And it's very complicated to work and get people together to do anything, right? Which is why it takes time to slowly build up civilizations and cultures and peoples and ideas and thought processes and relationships between different peoples and tribes and things like that, right? And Miquela's just like, no, we cannot do that. We need to fast forward to the end state where everybody's living in perfect harmony with one another, right? And that much is very clear. Which is, again, I personally find Miquela's this character arc for Miquela, it's very easily understandable. It's very digestible. I also find it kind of boring. It's been done to death. Like, I can think of Honkai Star Rail, for example, like with Sunday. Like, Sunday is very similar to Miquela in this regard, right? Where Sunday thought that, you know, if only I was able to do there, right? I will be, you know, sort of this self-sacrificial lamb with which to make a better world for all the rest of you, right? And I want to make a world for man, right? Like, he even makes it. He doesn't want to become a god. He wants to make a world. He wants to use essentially the powers of a dead god in order to make a world ideal for men. And the problem with Sunday and his ideal to make everyday Sunday was that, well, he didn't consider what the will of other people want, right? And essentially he was trying to impose his will, which is the exact same thing, of course, Miquela is trying to do, is he's trying to impose his will and have it override the wills of others and their differences and their circumstances and whether or not they want to be part of this little utopia that they, that Sunday and of course Miquela were cooking up, right? So there's definitely, like, it's been done before. It's not a new idea by any means. It's I consider it a very basic idea. And you know, I think at least with Astraya, there's something very interesting there with the idea that, you know, Astraya truly has like absolutely zero ill intention. Like she is someone who's purely doing this, and it kind of shows her naivete, her foolishness, and there's like a lot of, you know, character there of how being like, you know, the holiness versus the luck factor. Like there's, I just think there's a lot more going on for Astraya beyond just this dynamic of the tyranny of good intentions, right? And I think that just makes it where in especially in Astraya's case, because she's not doing it on like this world level, she's doing it on a very small scale, relatively speaking, and she's like kind of made everything insular, right? Like she's basically trying to kill any outsiders and stuff that go in because you're disturbing their haven. But what she's doing is essentially very self-destructive, and honestly no better than like effectively it is no better than what the old monk is doing. Now obviously the old monk is actually malicious about it, right? He's trying to add and prolong and include suffering beyond just the taking of souls, but essentially trying to you know, void people all the same for the sake of being like, oh, it's better this way for you if you have no soul. And a lot of people will take that because, well, again, when you're desperate, you'll take anything. It doesn't matter if it's like, oh, it's like, oh wow, like you're giving me the chance to make it, I don't get to feel any pain, whatever. Like sure, I'll take feeling nothing over feeling no pain. It's like, okay, well, Astraya, have you ever considered just, you know, maybe making it where they can feel things, but those things are more happy or better? Did you think of just actually maybe bettering their lives down there in the valley, and maybe that would be enough? And she couldn't, right? Like she couldn't think of a way to do that on her own, and she couldn't think of a way to do that with society or anything like that. So she felt the only option for her was to become a demon and be able to essentially just take feeling away from them, period. Take away their souls, take away their thought, take away everything, turn them just into mindless drones that just act upon their instincts and don't actually feel anything, right? They're just empty vessels at that point, right? Slavishly devoted to her will. And it's like, it's just one of those things where I think that that's just like a nice twist on it. But again, it's still a very, very basic idea. So while again, it's well executed, it's fine and all that stuff, I feel like it's just very boring to me with Miquella that this is where we're ending the, you know, the games on, where it's like, oh, this is just the type of story and character arc we're going for, right? It's like, oh, look at all these demigods and all their like selfish or like self-defeating ways that they're going about, you know, trying to claim the great runes and stuff. And then here's Miquella, the guy who thinks he's doing everything right, like he's you're on paper like your perfect guy, the guy you'd want to be the one to win out and all this thing, because he wants to just make a world as kind. And don't you want your world to be kind and good? Like how can you be against kindness and goodness and stuff like that, right? Again, it's just one of those things where it's very trite and stuff like that. Like Persona 5 did something like this where it asked the question about this stuff about taking away suffering from the world and all that stuff. Like, again, I just generally, it's just not for me. I find that this is, I think it's very philosophically flat. It's like, you know, it's one of these things where first person thinks about the problem of evil and the problem of suffering. It's like come on, man. Like we've had so much literature and stuff done about this for like thousands of years at this point. Like, are we really now like just like trying to posit the question like on this level and stuff? We can't like, you know, elevate the discussion any higher than this, right? Okay, let's go up here. Yeah, there's no statue here in the regular world. It's only when you're inside the Everjail that they have it. Anyway, so that's enough of me like, you know, going on a tangent about Miquella and stuff like that. Like I was saying earlier. Oh, it still shows yeah, it still shows this even though I closed it. That's interesting. So is that how that works? Let's look at the cruise. Let's look at the crusade here. Mesmer's Crusade's another one. I don't have a lot written for it. I have a little bit. Yeah, this is some of the stuff from like Dupre Perfumers. Like I moved here and stuff like that because I got some of the timeline stuff mixed up when I was working on the first draft. And then yeah, I mean, considering there's so little written, the fact that it's what, 18 pages of mostly just quotes. Oh, there's also this Twitter thread here, but mostly just like quotes and stuff like that. Like, holy hell, guys. This is another one I could see hitting 30 pages potentially. It might stop at like 27, 28. I could see that. But like this one I could see this one blowing up as well. There is so much crap here. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's not really, it's not just the Crusade. It's like you have to talk about Mesmer. You have to talk about some of the different agents in the Crusade and stuff like that. You have to kind of talk about probably everything except obviously the shattering of the Elden Ring. I think that stuff is going to be going here. And then we have... do I have this shown here? No, I do not. Wait, do I? No, I do not. Okay. Gotta switch this over here again. There we go. And then orders breaking, this one. So this is just stuff where it's like, I want to put this somewhere. I don't know where. I want to put this back into Omen. Like I had this in one of my drafts, but I removed it. I just didn't think it was necessary. But I kind of want to add it because I reference it with Rollo in Radigan's Reign. It's like, well, that's kind of awkward. So I need to find an angle where I can like, okay, let's talk a little bit about like Moog and Morgoth's like early life and stuff like that. Because it'd be really weird to talk about this in Crucible's, no, in Radigan's Reign. Right? Like ideally, I would want to talk about this in the Shattering with like Morgoth. I talk about like his early life and stuff like that and things like of that nature. And then obviously Moog would probably be the other half where we talk a bit about his specific history and stuff like that. And of course, all the other stuff related to him in the Lanedale sewers. But that again would be like a completely separate thing down the line. Yeah, again, I love the Rune Bear thing. I really want to add that to Caria, but I need to at the very least have it all planned out how I'm going to write it into Farum Azula, because it's definitely going to go there somewhere. I'll be talking about Rune Bears and stuff probably for the movements of populations and things. And then we have... It's cute you think modern audiences are reading that literature. Oh no, I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying that the authors and stuff, like, it's... Let me take it from me. I'm more insulted that, like, what this tells me about the writers and the authors, that this is like their statement, right? Like this is their thematic through line where it's like, oh, this is something we think is meaningful that we feel we need to bring up to the discussion. It's like, really, guys? Is this like the first thought you've had? Like this has been done to death. Like, come on. Like you have to have thought about it more and deeper there. Like, have you not asked the next question or the next question or like just something that really advances this beyond where we're at here? Like, what are we doing? It's like if someone like it's like when someone does like a basic story, it's like, what's the point of your story? You know, is freedom or security more important? It's like, oh, okay. It's like, okay, that's fine. I mean, you can do that and find that it's a good question, I guess, on its own and stuff like that. But like, you know, how many series where like that exact question like will get brought up outright? Like, can we not like have more interesting or nuanced discussion on this? Like, okay, let's say actually, what if we really want the security stuff? What if we're like, oh, freedom's underrated? What if we want to take the opposite? Or what if we want to say, okay, well, we decided that, you know, freedom is very important, but at what point do we trade the freedom for the security and stuff like that? At what point do we actually want the security and stuff like that? At what point does freedom get in the way? Like there's a lot more questions and things that we can ask beyond just, okay, we're gonna have like the good, plucky, like, I don't know, like, you know, again, to use like the Star Wars analogy, I don't want to reduce it to that, but you know, like the rebel faction, and then you got the evil empire faction, right? And they're turning out, it's like, you know, the evil empire faction, they're so about security and control, and see how bad they are because they're like tyrannical about it. And then we have our good guys because they just want freedom, guys. Our wonderful little bag of not terrorists are just want freedom and good, and you know, it's just one of those things where I'm like, I have a less of opinion of an author when they feel like they have to do something that like it's already such a popular and big topic on the conversation, and yet you're just kind of like trying to like, you know, go back into like, you know, what's the word, you know, swam waters, as it were. Yeah, there's nothing else really here in Ordina that I think we need to look at besides potentially the Everjail stuff. And we already have shots of the what are they called, the Black Dive, so I think that stuff is good. We have the cave here. Like I said, there's only the dragon here. I don't think there's anything else interesting. Albadoric stuff we're covered. Zamor, I think we have everything we would want for Zamor because we just want to talk about them with the fire giants, right? Sorry to drag the conversation, but would you say you have a favorite philosopher and or school of thought? Say boring answer, but I'm a big fan of David Hume. I'm not much of a Hume guy. think a boring answer would probably be say like I've liked some of the I definitely liked a lot of Aquinas's stuff. I've definitely liked Machiavelli's works. C.S. Lewis has a lot of good stuff that I've liked. There's some stuff in Kant and Descartes that I've enjoyed. I don't know if I'd call them my favorites though. Going back to some like church fathers and stuff, some of it's like just really dense material though, so like I can't really say it's my favorite, you know, like it's like goodness me, these guys, like great job, these guys can keep track of so much information, stuff like that, but holy hell, I may as well be reading a German German thesis if I'm gonna do that. Like holy hell, can the run-on sentences go. Regarding the jellyfish spirits in the cave with the dragon, why do you think they're there? That's a question about why the hell are the jellyfish around, period. I have not, at least not yet. It has never like occurred to me why we have jellyfish spirits in the locations we have them at, period. If I knew that question, I think it would all fall into place for a lot of that, but like I just don't know why the jellyfish appear where they at, like what's the criteria, what's making them, like again, the only thing that we've really found is that it may be limited to women and or children, and if it's supposed to be limited to women and or children, okay, then what would that mean? That there's a lot of women and or children that are dead and or drawn to this cave. And again, you can say that for any location where we find them. That part I don't know. That one is a little bit beyond me. Yeah, I have no, like I said, I've the other day, like I mentioned, I'm just starting to get a better sense about the stuff at Castle Morn and some of the weirdness with the jellyfishes there and other stuff about the general area. I am not in a position, I feel, where I can answer, like I can't say like I'm like, oh, I got it, I get everything about the jellies yet. Like I'm just not there. That one is going to remain a mystery for me for who knows when, you know, whenever I try to like say like, oh, it'll be a while, and then like a month later it hits me, right? There's so many times that's happened. After God Hunts especially, it's like, oh god, I should stop making predictions about things. I don't know when it's gonna like just hit me one day like a truck. Yeah, same with these guys. Like I'm not entirely sure why they seem to appear in the ancient forest areas, specifically around the rivers. Like, are they supposed to be some kind of like leftover like elements of like the water fairies or something like that? Like I don't know. But then there's questions about why don't they appear in certain areas, right? Like Lake of Rot, okay, understandable. But we don't really see them anywhere in Ainsel either. Is it because we don't have the trees around there? Is that really the key factor? I think Night Rain also includes them in different locations, right? That aren't necessarily with the trees and stuff, so that might also be relevant to the discussion, though again that wouldn't be suitable for a base game Elden Ring analysis solely, so we have to consider that first. Yeah, I mean I consider some of those picks a little basic myself, but like, you know, some of them I'm really taken with, you know, like I've always been taken with you know, Machiavelli stuff and like that. Yeah, I think Machiavelli is at least person that I think he's someone who like at least tries to say, okay, let's like take morality out of the question. Let's just try to make a purely political treatise. And I think what's more interesting to me even than like Machiavelli's work is how people misinterpret Machiavelli because they cannot understand the nuance. I feel the same way about Nietzsche, right? Like I'm not big on Nietzsche, but I think I have a lot more respect for Nietzsche, more than I say people who like, you know, they oversimplify Nietzsche. That's actually one of my problems with Nier Automata, right? Like I think Nier Automata is a great game. Again, I don't like using the term masterpiece, but I completely understand anyone who wants to call that game a masterpiece. But I do have one criticism in which I think some of the message of the game is a little off, insofar as it seems to make a big deal of wanting to like set up and sort of deconstruct a lot of like, you know, big name philosophers and stuff like that. And I don't know, from like, you know, playing the game and stuff like that, I get the feel that like Yoko Taro never actually like read or studied or understood anything about these philosophers. More so like he just kind of has created in his head these kind of, what's the word, straw man versions of them, which he tries to then like reduce and flanderize for the purposes of then like making a point about, you know, what is the point of all this like philosophical stuff and all that stuff, like what does it really mean, like it should, you know, and as we get to the end of the game, you know, what do you know, the feel good, be happy type of thing, and I'm like, you know, again, I think I think that could be a bit reductive as far as like, you know, thematic messaging goes and stuff like that. And it especially like there's the joke about Nietzsche, right, in Automaton, and again, it's a funny joke, don't get me wrong, but it's one of those things where I'm like, how much of that is really tongue-in-cheek and how much of that is a little bit, you know, like, I don't want to say malicious, but a little bit kind of like, you know, mean-spirited. But again, that might be me giving Yoko Taro a little too much shade there, you know? Man's kind of just a weirdo. The trees are there, I think, for the Anvil Village. That or it's the ice crystal trees. Yeah, I don't remember exactly where those little blue guys show up. I just remember that they do show up somewhere in Night Rain. I just don't recall where. Ooh. Every time. So in particular, I've noticed that the spirit jellyfish can leave behind spirit ashes despite already being spirits in the first place with no body for ashes. That is true. That is an interesting dilemma. But again, this assumes that ashes are the same cosmologically as they have been in even Dark Souls, for example, to some extent. I think you could definitely make a case that ashes aren't exactly like, you know, the same chemical, don't have the same quote unquote chemical makeup in the world of Elden Ring, and that there's something more fundamental to any type of body with a physical presence on this plane, right? I think you could definitely make an argument for that, in which case I don't think it's that weird if the jellyfishes as well, despite being, you know, not flesh and blood physical per se, would still leave behind ashes. But yeah, I do think overall there's a lot of questions. I will admit I haven't thought too hard about the jellyfishes and stuff, but whenever like we're going through and we're just passively like, you know, collecting info and experience and like seeing them over and over and over again, nothing's clicked for me. I will freely admit that. At some point maybe it will, but not today. There we go. There we go. Going through here, and then it's just an open field, and we have a little bit of our blue guys here. Yeah, okay. There we go. So the spirit ashes seem to be made from bodies of people interred in Erd tree roots. Trish's outright murder and turned to ashes right away. No, Ronnie clarifies ashes are specifically people who don't receive Erd tree burial and stuff like that. So it shouldn't be people interred in the roots. Yeah, Ronnie says that quite explicitly when she is like giving essentially the tutorial on spirit ashes and stuff with like the wolves or whatever. So like the idea is that the ashes are a byproduct of something that happens when you don't receive Erd tree burial, which is why, again, it's not that weird that Trisha becomes ashes, because again, she's not, you know, she's overseeing Erd tree burials. She's not part of the Erd tree burials, right? Yeah, nothing else really. All right, I need to confirm one more time. Was that just a really weird glitch? Nope, the bears aren't here. They should be here. I'm now really curious if that was an intentional thing. So I don't remember killing bears on this character. Maybe I did. Maybe I did and I just don't remember, but like, I don't remember that being a thing. We pulled several spirit ashes from catacombs. Yeah, from top altars and stuff, typically. or from bosses and stuff who are, you know, defending the areas and stuff. Like, for example, the Kaiden Merc I'm thinking of in the... Yeah, Cliff Bottom Cat. I was like, it's bottom. It ends with bottom. I know that. Cliff Bottom Catacombs. Right, and that ties into the whole Godric and the Omen and stuff and all that moving in. So, again, very different circumstance. Yeah, I think you're off base there, Night Scout. I think you're misconstruing what Ronnie's saying. Oh, in there. I do find it funny how all of this becomes overgrown and stuff, right? Like, the idea is like, yeah, we have like our trees and stuff growing in the middle here. Like, this is supposed to happen, but like, it's not being trimmed and stuff, so all the bushes and things. I think I should mention this in the shattering. That for sure should happen, right? The overgrowth and stuff. Obviously, we have to mention all this stuff being left here in the battlefield. I'm actually very... yeah, orders breaking is here, right? Yeah. I'm actually very happy here. Because, obviously there's the Mesmer army stuff. But for me, it's like the general. I think I could oh, this is Malakath. Keep going up. Like, I've got the stuff on Dane and the Dryleaf sect. I'm very proud of this. Considering first draft and all that stuff, I'm very proud with how this came out, because there's a lot of stuff to try to pack in here, and it's really cool how they kind of, like, you know, input all of this, like, you know, Asian cultural inspirations into this faction that's, like, you know, manages to fit pretty, you know, logically within the setting of, like, you know, oh yeah, well, you know, we kind of have to prepare if things are going to get real bad real quick. Yeah, this is gonna also make me very happy whenever this gets done, is the talk on hollowing. Miyazaki did it again. He did it again. So there's a lot here with, like, the yeah, with the crabs and stuff like that. Also can't wait to expand on Godric with a lot of stuff. Like, I keep finding more stuff to add to an update on Godric. It's like, oh my god, there's just so much Godric. There's so much Godric. Then we do this. Yeah, this is all... Surprisingly, this stuff stayed within the confines. Yeah, you're fine here. Yeah, everything else, it's fine. It's about what you'd expect. Oh, man, you know, if I was in charge of landscaping, I would put a few more trees here personally. But hey, what do I know? What do I know? I'm not in charge of a royal capital. As someone who's played on I can't say it, Automata, have you tried the remake of Replicant? It might just be the most enjoyable 6 out of 10 game ever. I really like what they did with the Replicant. I think remaking the original Nier was a good idea. I think it was an excellent, you know, like, just stylistically and gameplay wise, I think it's one of the better quote unquote remakes you could have in gaming. Again, I always appreciate games which, like, do something radical on the gameplay stuff, while, again, still trying to keep true to the original in terms of you know, all the essential bits of what made that game special and unique and fun and enjoyable and things like that. I think they very much succeeded. I think my problem with Replicant is that the playing through it again and again multiple times over to get to the quote-unquote, like, true ending and all that stuff, a lot of it feels like filler. And I think this is always going to be a problem with Yoko Taro's games, with the way he structures it. I think he did it better in Automata, in terms of, like, how the routes diverge and change and stuff like that. Like, 1, he kept it down to, like, 2. But if I remember correctly, in Replicate, you need to beat the game, like, 3 or 4 times. And it's like, okay, like, why couldn't this all have been on the second playthrough route, right? Like, why do we need to beat the game, like, 2 or 3 times, right? I don't know if you really need to do that in order to hammer home the message. So that's definitely something. And then there is, I like that they, again, I like that they added the ending with the ending that used to just be basically, I think it was just a short story or a novel. I can't remember exactly, it's been a while. But I'm glad they added that ending essentially back to the Replicant remake. I think it was good because I feel Yoko Taro's games have always suffered from not having their quote unquote true ending, you know, properly in them. I say the same thing about Drakengard 3, which is a game I personally would want to see remade. I think Drakengard 3 was terribly underserved by, you know, just a lot of things. And I feel like if they remade that game, it would be something really special. I think it's Yoko Taro at his most irreverent and just kind of like odd. And I think it comes together in like a really beautiful way. But God, fuck that final boss. And I feel that you could definitely do probably like so much with like the combat and everything and things like that, and like god damn the characters, like oh my god. Like I feel like if you incorporate the DLC for Drakengard 3 into the main game and somehow make it like better flow or whatever, like god, you could do so much. Hardly agree there should be a set split off point for new endings. Ooh. I'm trying to think, because in Drakengard 3 they kind of have the timeline thing where they kind of do that. I don't know, I feel like Nier might benefit if there was no, chapter select might make it where you miss so many stuff. I don't know, I just feel like they had to find a better way to like condense it where you don't need to go through so many playthroughs. I can understand the idea that there's some like artistry to the repetition, but it's the same way in which I would say like, yeah, sure, you could make a case for runbacks in Souls games and stuff. I would still say that what you gain is infinitesimal compared to what you're losing. Again, I also think a big problem with like Yoko Taro's like writing style is that like Yoko Taro can't help himself, that he has to make something always more fucked up. Like there can't just be like, oh, this is just a normal, ordinary, like just good guy and all that stuff. Like there has to be some secret, evil, fucked up thing in there. And you're like, okay, I know this wasn't ever originally the intention. Like this was obviously something you came up with after the fact, and you're now trying to shoehorn it in. Like it's very obvious what you're doing here. And it's like, why do you got to do it every single time? Like, can you never just be like, no, you know, this is just a completely normal, serviceable, like, you know, like side character who's like just like a good guy and just perfectly decent or whatever. And you know, this is just a guy who's living in an ordinary village, he's just like, you know, doing his thing or whatever. No, there has to be some way that we can make this super fucked up and stuff like that. So I think that would be another criticism I have, and I do feel like some of that might get mitigated if you kind of just condense it all into like one route instead of like kind of making it drawn out where it's like, okay, I have to do all this like boring repetitive crap, and then all I'm kind of getting about it is just like, oh god, everything is fucked up and stupid and cruel and you know. Like at some point, again, I same thing I say with DS2, right? It's like at some point, like, you know, if you're going to be very vapid and stuff like that in that regard, where I'm like having to like go through so much to get to like get the very obvious point that you're making, like you just, it's not worth the time, man. Right? Like I said, I like Replicant a lot. I think overall, I think when you take like voice acting, art style, gameplay, like just everything together, it's like a real enjoyable treat and stuff. But I think it's true with all of Yoko Taro's games. Like there is always something where it's like, okay, you have to like sit down and you are going to invest yourself in the experience that is Yoko Taro, flaws and all, like warts and all. We get Angval from a tree spirit. In my opinion, I guess he was interred with those roots. Okay, that is true. That is true. There is there is the idea that he's at the very least was in the process barrel. Though I guess you could make the argument that he might have already turned to ash by that point. You could make that case that he was already ash and they just interred the ash after the fact. Kind of like what we see doing with who was it? Was it the Kaiden, or was that one of the boss? Oh, I know. I think the Kaiden mercenary was on the altar with the Omen, right? I forgot what the boss of Cliffbottom Catacombs gave us then. By the way, that's a separate thing. Everything being really fucked up is kind of Yoko Taro's brand. I disagree. I think Yoko Taro's brand is just being very zany and creative, right? I think like Yoko Taro's brand being, oh no, everything is really fucked up, I think that takes away from stuff when he's trying to like, because here's the thing, there's stuff where it's like, you know, every author, I think it's fine if you're going to be like, oh, I want to make things a little fucked up, I want to make things a little edgy, you know, like, again, I have nothing against that in and of itself. The problem with Yoko Taro is he oversaturates it in all his works, right? Like, Taken Replicant, right? Like the main character, little boy, hero, does odd jobs and stuff around the village. Do you get any sense when you're playing through the opening of the game? Oh yeah, that's a kid that also involves himself in child prostitution for his sister. No, you do not. Oh, it's from some of the people he goes and hangs around and meets with and pals away with the village. It's like, no, I don't think so. So it's like Yoko Taro just has this habit where like he makes something and he's like, oh, you know what? This has a little bit too much sunshine in it. I need to make it. It's just one of those things where you're just like, why? Like, there's no need to add it. There wasn't like, oh no, this was a really like big glaring hole or missing part of the narrative or like big plot hole you really had to answer or whatever. It was just like, he just wanted to do it. He just kind of decided, you know what? No, I need to make this more fucked up so that way it has that shock value, right? I think that's one of the problems is that Yoko Taro, I think, gets wrapped up so much in his brand and how he's kind of shocking and weird and zany that he kind of leans into it too hard. I think that's what, in my opinion, happens with him a lot. So he feels like he has to make it where everything that he can, where he's like, oh, I could come up with a short story or something that we can then sell or whatever to help promote the game or whatever. Okay, I'll come up with something new to like make everything even more fucked up than you originally thought. And I think that's where like my criticism really lies, is I think that he can't help himself from just like doing it every single time. And it's like give it a rest, right? Okay, yeah, it's Burial Watchdog. Okay, it's the reward from defeating Burial Watchdog. Gotcha. If I recall correctly, he made Drakengard a game specifically to punish people who like under completion. He likes messing with the people who buy his games. Drakengard's more understandable because like it's just generally like, you know, some of his earlier works and it's like more experimental as a game and stuff like that. And it has actually like a really interesting like commentary and messaging like all throughout and stuff like that. That is, I think, one of the better like Yoko Taro titles, period. If we ignore some of the enjoyableness of the actual gameplay, which again, you could argue was made a certain way. But again, I think this goes to the point that Yoko Taro learned that one of the problems when you try to make something where it's supposed to be having a message about how unfun and suffering it is then it is unfun and people don't want to play it. And that ultimately you have to realize when you're making art, you're trying to straddle a line where, okay, I'm going to include a character who's really fucking annoying. Okay, but I have to make sure to straddle that line so that character doesn't become really fucking annoying for the player or the audience or whoever it is, because then people just don't want to watch it. Because why am I going to watch it and want to listen to this annoying character like humming on every 5 seconds within the game, right? Like these are things that you learn throughout the process. And I appreciate Yoko Taro from at least trying to experiment, at least with some of his earlier games and stuff. But it's very clear he's learned, okay, no, it's better off if I try to make sure that the actual gameplay and stuff is enjoyable and serves the purposes of, you know, facilitating the narrative I'm trying to present. And maybe you can make certain aspects of the gameplay maybe a little difficult or counterintuitive or something like that. Like a lot of people might say that about From Software games, right? With the way they play compared to action RPGs and just action games in general, when Demon Souls and Dark Souls were first coming out, right? But that doesn't change the fact that Dark Souls and Demon Souls are well-made, like wonderfully crafted gameplay games. They're just very different, right? And I think Yoko Taro's would be better served if like a Drakengard remake was made, if he made it more like that, where the gameplay is 100% fun, enjoyable, right? Like even Drakengard 3 was very clearly made with more enjoyable combat. The combat was just kind of, you know, flat and kind of basic and stuff. So, and the enemies were very repetitive, which again, he kind of leaned into story-wise, but it's like, it's still like, haha, I'm highlighting the fact that my game doesn't have that many enemies or something like that. Like, again, at a certain point, it's like, listen, you like, you know, pointing out the problems with your title, you know, at some point it's like, well, that's just a problem. That's not funny. Anyway, again, I don't want to, again, this isn't the hate Yoko Taro stream. So again, I respect him a lot as an auteur and stuff like that. I think we're better in the video game space with him, and I wish that people would be letting him make more games and stuff like that, because I definitely think that he has contributed a lot to gaming with his works and his ideas and just his general, like, you know, approach to titles and things like that, right? I got my own problems with stuff, in particular related to our questions about like philosophy and philosophers and stuff like that, which I would, I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever be in a position where I could possibly, like, you know, discuss it with good old Taro, but I feel that overall, I would have a bone to pick with him on some of these things, and I don't think he thinks about them or the role of philosophical thought and stuff like that, and why it's existed for so long in the first place. But again, well, you know, just a difference of opinions there. And then we go over here. Oh no, I'm lost. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so far everything here looks like it's been covered. I don't think I'm missing anything, except maybe I don't remember if I talked about the death fog thing that the golden skellies do. I don't know if I'm gonna have that in Death Prince or if it's gonna be something I say for Death Birds. I have to think that one over. And then we have, oh yeah, of course we got you. We got you, you piece of shit. Get me out of dark mode or whatever it is. Go, bring me back to the timeline where, oh, he's still dead. Whoops. I forgot. And then this has to go into shattering. Yeah, that much is obvious. Should probably include this in shattering, right? With these things moved aside and then picking up the pieces and stuff like that. Oh, let's remember that. We're gonna go to a character that doesn't have these stupid ass. There we go. These stupid ass embers in the sky. There we go. I see the mod's time of day glitch out again. It did glitch out. This is, I fully control it. I keep it stuck at midday, Night Scout. There is no glitches here. Nighttime is never... Nighttime is only what I notice it's supposed to be. I never paid too much attention there. Yeah, overall, I think I've got a lot of stuff covered pretty thoroughly. Like I said, I want to do an update with Godric that'll expand on a bunch of stuff. I do think that, like I said, I'm not looking forward to doing Mesmer anytime soon. I think the same is going to hold true for Mikola, for sure. Rykard I could see myself doing this year. I don't want to, like, it's definitely not something where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm feeling like doing Rykard immediately, but I do feel like at some point, somewhere down the line, I'm going to want to write about him this year and really kind of dig into why he do what he do. Oh God. There we go. This'll work. There we are. There we go. It's just that the game's clock is registered as 9 even if the mod is keeping it at midday. Again, all it does is change the lighting. The mod just allows you to adjust the lighting so it adjusts to the lighting of the time of day. It has nothing to do with actually keeping it stuck at the time of day or whatever. That is not what it's trying to do. It's trying to make it so you can freely get whatever time of day shadows and lighting and stuff and all that thing. Not a glitch. Working as intended. Is this guy the Mimic? I think this guy's the Mimic, right? If this guy is the Mimic, I'm not entirely sure why he's cowering here in the corner. Like, not entirely sure what his deal is. All right. Yeah, they're just doing their thing. These guys doing their thing. We don't care about them too much. We know about the soldiers on the hill and things, so that's fine. Yeah. Just our skelly bros otherwise. So the mod has never tried to adjust the game clock. Got it. Yeah. It's that's not what it's trying to do. Again, it's pure. This is you gotta think of what I am adjusting time of day, quote unquote. I'm adjusting time of day lighting. It's a lighting mod essentially. It's a camera mod with a lighting mod, you know, attachment, as well as I don't know what even you would call it when we do the slowdown and stuff. I know this is something that does exist in like the game files because you could do it in Dark Souls 1's like console and stuff, but like the game speed, I'm not exactly sure how this works out, but it also does things. Now this glitches out if you have it less than like 0.35. The physics gets a little wonky. Like now it's like normal here, but as soon as I go below 0.35, as you can see, the tail, like it starts like, it has this problem where it's like, okay, now it's got like this weird floaty physics to it, just kind of permanent there. And then like as soon as it goes higher, it just settles here. And then like you go back up and now it's like, okay, gotta be a little floaty again. It's just, that's where it kind of glitches. I don't know though if that's the mod so much as that's just how the game is. Like the game is obviously not designed to work at such slow speeds. So the physics engine, I wouldn't be surprised, just doesn't know what to do and keep up. He becomes a guardian lion. Yeah, okay, good to know. So that guy is the Mimic tier that turns into a guardian lion. Good to know. Maybe the idea is the Mimic tier killed the guardian lion and is now afraid of retribution? Maybe? That's the only thing I can think of. Oh yeah, this was something. Yeah, these soldiers here, I've noticed this. Speaking of lions, what was the Japanese name for the young lion armor? Don't remember. I will look now. Let's make sure. Young lion armor. That was in the DLC, right? All right, let's look for it. Huh? What? Oh, right. Wrong thing. Duh. There we go. Oh yeah, young lion. It says what it says. And specifically the term for young is meant to mirror the young used for Radon in the description, so yeah, it's purely just a you know, it says what it says on the tin. Ah, there they are. There's my buddy, old pals, old friends. Let's wait till that knight comes back. Get back over here, asshole. There we go. Puppy Bowl tomorrow. Oh, and there's the football game on or something. I don't know. What's a Puppy Bowl? I've legit never heard of this. Is it what I think it is? Is that also what it says on the tin? Because if so, I might actually want to check that out. Oh my god, guys, I just realized something. If you look at from Radigan's perspective, right? With his head slightly tilted up and stuff from in here, you can't see the chest behind the pillars. You mean it doesn't have a secret meaning that says Radon was mind controlled? Darn. Wait, is that what people were? Is that what people have been speculating? Is that actually like a thing? Young like juvenile or a broad generic sense of young? More definitely like a more broad and generic, like, how'd I put this? Like, this would work if he was a teenager or young adult for sure, right? Like, that would be my impression when I look at this. When I look at, like, oh, okay, there's talk of course, the young Radon. It's like, okay, this would be Radon, I imagine, where he's, like, maybe 10, right? And then there's this Radon where he becomes the young lion. I'm like, okay, this guy's, like, you know, probably in his teens, maybe like, you know, maybe like a young man, like, you know, like college age type, you know, like a little bit early 20s, maybe. But like definitely somewhere where you're like, okay, like he's still someone you'd consider like, you know, a young guy. And then of course we finally get to General Radon where they just basically teach him where he's like, he's a full-grown, fully mature adult. You know, what that means in demigod years, God only knows, but like, you know, he's no longer, you would say, in his, like, you know, maturing phase. Joke about sometimes stuff being left out in localization. Okay, good. Because I'd just be like, okay, I don't know how exactly, like, you could interpret young Radon being like, well, maybe he was brainwashed. Like, I do have to wonder if someone would, like, make that jump somewhere. I'm just be like, what's the logic? No, I was asking since young lion can have a certain meaning in some languages. Yeah, I don't know if that was the intention. Again, looking at the kanji, I think it's purely a look at, I think it's purely just a reference to, you know, the fact that, you know, Radon is a younger man than what we see him as General Radon, and therefore, the armor is named to reflect that, right? Because I don't remember, it's just called Radon's armor, right? The basic stuff you get from defeating his boss and stuff and going to Enya or whatever, right? Like, it's just called like the Radon set or whatever. Or is it called like the lion armor? I don't feel that doesn't sound right to me. Maybe it's like maybe it was like red lion armor or golden lion armor, maybe, I don't know. Oh, that sounds adorable, Nick. Like, yeah, I definitely want to check that out for sure. We got nothing there. So I think everything on the, again, besides like, you know, the little soldiers that I got there, I think I'll add that to Ancient Dragon War. Or was it Radigan's Reign where I meant, whatever, I'll figure it out. Well, I had some for those soldiers there. Because I completely missed them. You want the jellyfish, Fido? Or is it the worm faces you after? Believe me, you don't want them. You sit your ass down here on this here precipice and you stay. You go down there, friend, it'll be hell on earth. You'll never be able to escape. You'll wish you hadn't. General Radon said, oh, okay, yeah, so yeah, it's very clearly just the idea of, like, you know, Radon is the red lion, and so they make it the young lion set. Man, Miyazaki missed an opportunity there. He should have foreseen in the future that he would create a younger Radon armor set by including Radon as a boss fight again, and therefore named the Radon set appropriately so he could make more puns and word plays. Rookie mistake. This guy's the company president, can you believe it? Star Scourge Radon stuff is called the light armor. No, it is not. Stay on tongue, you frame. Sure. Okay, you guys are gonna be pulling my leg like this. We gotta look it up ourselves then. Okay, what's it called? What's it called? What's it called? Is it actually lion armor? We shall find out. Let's control F lion just to make this easy. Okay. Yeah, no, it's Radon's. Okay, technically it's Radon's lion armor. That much is true. But it's Radon's. What's the JP for this? Okay, yeah, this is Radon's, like, red hair helmet, Radon's lion armor, and then gauntlets and graves. Yeah, sure. It's really probably the one time I'm actually really liking the red mane. Like, I generally like the localization choice of red mane, like it flows and stuff like that. But technically, they're not red manes, they're red lions. But this translation of, like, red hair as red mane, I'm like, okay, yeah, I like that. I like that here. That's a creative way to include it. Okay. No, he's referencing my comment about the puppy bowl. What did you comment about the puppy bowl? It's a puppy pit fighting ring. Xavier! How could you? I am so disappointed. I am like, just, can you hear it? Can you hear the violin of my disappointment? It is so infinitesimally tiny. But I am so disappointed in you right now. To that much extent. The pit fighting allegations. Yeah, so it's not all called that. I assume the young lion stuff, though, is consistent across names or whatever. So technically, it's the Radon set. But they do at least got the lion in the armor bit, I guess. This we definitely need to talk more about, but it's mostly going to be a Moog. This is going to be a Moog thing. Probably all the stuff related with the soldiers and stuff will also be a Moog, so that one I think we could safely cross off the list. Shaded Castle, I think will be in Melania. Yeah, probably Melania, because Murray talks so much about Melania, and we have so little content with Melania otherwise. Like, I think I might struggle to make Melania a thesis. Like, maybe I'm underselling her and her posse, but I really feel like there's not that much to talk about once we're through with the Mikola stuff. So I feel like Melania is gonna, like, barely crack 10 pages. Like, I could see her being a 12-pager. Now, granted, I could be wrong and she ends up being like 15 to 18. I could also see that scenario possibly, but, like, I don't know. I don't think there's that much to talk about. I think Melania's probably a wonderful boss experience for some people, but just a very, very simple character. Yeah, DLC versions Young Lion for all port. Yeah, that's what I thought. So again, I go back to my point. Miyazaki, you should have seen the future. You should have seen the future. Just take out the Radon. Just call it the lion stuff. Call it the red lion stuff. I'll even accept. All right, the DLC ending really watered her character down. I don't think there was anything to water down. I think her character was just kind of there. Again, I think when you have a character whose like title is literally the blade of her brother, you kind of go with the idea that okay, like Melania doesn't really have much agency as her own character. Okay, if there's one thing that might redeem the length of her thesis, it will probably be what's her face with Gowry and stuff. Like if I include the Gowry and all the different like Millicent and Gowry and all the other sisters and stuff, if I include that in Melania's things, I think that'll buoy the length and definitely get us over the 15-page mark. Maybe even we'll hit 20-ish pages with everything else combined. I could see that possibly. But like in general, like Melania's like, you know, Melania's like the muscle to Miquella's, you know, brains, right? Yeah, she's fairly one note. Again, I could see like maybe a little bit more depth and interest in how she became so one note, how she became like no, whatever Miquella says goes, right? But I'm not expecting like suddenly this super compelling woman here who decides she's just gonna basically be her brother's bee. Rolana is also called the Blade of Mesmer. I would also say Rolana is fairly one note, but she benefits from the fact that at least she has like different faction changes and loyalties going for her, so that makes her a little more interesting. But like Rolana's also like, she's not like she's no Renala, that's for sure. Like I don't even think she's a Rena. I think she is very one note as well. Like her entire thing is like she's the Carian swords. She's like the Carian sword princess, who then falls in love with the the foreign prince, and basically gives up everything to be with him. It's like, oh, okay, gotcha. Glad we solved that mystery. Who was the third sister? Again, I'm being a little harsh. Again, I like Rolana a lot, but like again, she's a character. I would even say the same with Melania. I actually like Melania stuff, mostly for their designs, I will admit. I think that does a lot of the heavy lifting, but I think their characters, I think, are very, very simple, very basic. Rolana is someone who would have a lot more notes if she didn't go on Crusade. I would be interested in seeing like how like stuff like the Lyrian Wars might have changed if she was there with her sister and stuff like that. Like, would she be understanding, or would she be like the voice of reason, being like, "Hello, sister, this is obviously just a ploy in order for them to be able to get leverage in these peace negotiations. We should be pressing things. Why are you doing this?" Like, I think that would be interesting to explore that idea. Oh, okay. Testu's covered, Liam stuff. Oh, this river well still. The only thing that bugs me about this is where they got the golem. Like with Shaded Castle and Malay Murray, whatever his name is. I get it, because like the plateau with the capital and stuff, like they establish that the golems are around here. In this context, I can only think of you getting the golems from the rune-strewn precipice. But then my question would be like, why? Why go all the trouble to find to bring a golem here? Like, what's the backstory? Because I don't think there are any items in the precipice. Sleep starting to hit me, chat. That would connect back to this area in any way. Like, I don't remember there being any items where it's like, oh, that's odd that this is here, and be like, oh no, it connects to the primeval current source towards there, right? Like this, I get. This I get. It's, we have a sorcerer ball. We have a bunch of Noxian bodies coming down river. So we go there, collect the bodies, and use them for primeval current sorcery and stuff like that. And I guess either the person ended up becoming part of the sorcerer ball they created, or the rune bear showed up? Question mark? But yeah, this is like the one thing where I'm kind of like, oh, like, why did you go out of the way to get the golem? I guess the idea would be to protect it so no one would, I guess, mess with their specimen lab, because they're like researching here, right? So it's the idea being like, hey, you can't like steal from our stash, like we call dibs on this place. Oh, there's a rune bear here. There's 2 rune bears here. Again, like we were saying on the stream yesterday, there's a total of like 4, I think it was, on the east side and none on the west side, which is like, that's like really cool in the context of the whole dragon connection and stuff. Yeah, I still wonder if there's a direct connection potentially with the prisoner set we acquire here. I'm curious if the idea is like, oh no, get it? These are like prisoners, but they like escaped from like primeval current sorcery and stuff like that. And they're practicing their stuff here. There we go. We go through here. Oh, friend. Oh, yeah, sorry, chat. The sleep is coming over again.
Well,
Gravity stuff, duh, because of Estelle. Do because of Nox. Acid spray mist because of depraved perfumers and the ants. Then the prisoner stuff. Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess the idea could be that it's escaped primeval sorcerer convicts. They escape in all the chaos and the shattering and stuff like that, and start performing this stuff. Actually, if that's the case, if that's the argument I'm gonna make, I can include that in if not orders breaking, then definitely in the shattering. Uh-huh. I could include it in Lyrian Civil War too. I just don't know where I would put it, and if I want to do so, and Lyrian Civil War is already decently long. Prisoner starting class is implied to be a noble and knows glintblade sorcery. I wonder if Lyrian nobility were punished with this gear and some were executed by the ants. I don't think they were executed by the ants. Again, I think it ties into what we're seeing with the primeval sorcerer stuff, because if you have a prisoner, I think it makes sense to tie it in with the primeval sorcerer stuff, where obviously primeval sorcery would be the serious crime worthy of at least imprisoning them. As for the nobility question, it could be. I'd have to think about that, because it'd be like, okay, well, do we have possibility of nobility besides the moon nobles we see on the moonlight altar? If not, it could just be representing a general, because obviously we know what the set is associated with for the class specifically, right? But in the context here, I could see a case for this being just a generic prisoner, period. Because the actual items and stuff, neither appearance-wise nor description-wise, allude to the past, right? It only works for the prisoner class itself, because obviously we get the items and spells and stuff that coincide with that. So I could see this being just they're going just with the idea of a prisoner who is a sorcerer. and they're not taking the class element into occasion. I could definitely see that possibility. Either way, I think that's probably the best explanation we would have. Guy either died becoming a sorcery ball, or based on the merchant having the equipment here, you make the case died to the various threats like the Estelle or the ants and stuff like that, while going through trying to collect the bodies flowing downriver. Finding good sorcerer specimens. You gotta find the good specimens. Can't let them all get away. Bumping this because I'm genuinely curious. Do you think there's an element of white boy mind control going on with Melania, intentional or not? As in, Mikola using, his brainwashing stuff on Melania? I haven't seen anything that would really lead me to believe that. I also just don't think... I think the point is that that Mikola doesn't need to brainwash Melania, because Melania already does whatever Big Brother tells her to. We have to go back to it. The reason why Mikola is doing all of this was ultimately because of his sister. For him, all of it stems back to how his sister has had to suffer with rot just by being born. And he finds that so unfair. Like, that is sort of like his defining moment. That's what kind of sets his entire character into motion. So I just don't think Mikola ever at any point, considering that his entire life he's basically been trying to get Melania to you know, to be cured, to be free of the Scarlet Rot. I just don't see it where like he would be like, okay, sis, I'm gonna brainwash you. I feel like Melania understands that, she sees that, she witnesses it, she's internalizes that, and therefore she will do whatever Mikola wants because he sacrificed so much for her and he's doing so much more for her that she feels obligated to do the same for him, and thus becomes essentially his unquestioning tool, right? Again, it goes back to essentially removing her own agency. Yeah, I just don't see brainwashing working with her. Yeah, I don't see it. I think with everything we receive on the character, I just don't think there's a reason to even posit the idea that she could be brainwashed. Yeah, I just don't see it. Like, I'd sooner see him try to brainwash Trina if that was... I don't think that's possible, but, like, I'd sooner see, like, Mikola, like, try to do some sort of brainwashing influence effect on Trina than he would ever do on Melania. I think you could even make the case... Actually, no, I don't think that's fair. I think it's fair to say. I was even thinking that maybe you can make the case that Melania is the only person that he, like, truly cares for, but... I don't think that's true. I think what we see with Radon is fair enough. I think at the very least, he legitimately admires Radon on a very deep level. You could argue maybe a little too deeply. And maybe she can want something else a little too deep, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, but, yeah, I don't know, like, how I'd feel, because, like, the whole idea Trina is essentially the embodiment of Mikola's love and stuff like that, and obviously Trina is very loving to people. Like, I just don't think it'd be fair to say that Mikola doesn't love. There is an interesting question going back to the sociopath argument. If Mikola discards, though, his own love and stuff like that, because he thinks love, therefore, is biased, and therefore makes it more difficult for him to be the perfectly equitable, like, ubermensch god king that he imagines he needs to be, then what is he going to do in the context of, like, you know, everybody else that he's dealing with? Doesn't that mean that, like, he loves all of them, or at the very least he feels some degree of love for all of them, through that he is, you know, manifest vicariously through Trina, right? He truly loved Godwin as well. Okay, so the thing with Godwin is I think people have always inflated, like, Godwin's importance to Mikola. I think people have always like gone like a little bit too hard into this idea that like, oh no, like Godwin is like the super big influence in Miquella's life. It's in doing so. Like again, I said it before that that statue is very clearly supposed to be a woman. It's very clearly supposed to be like, you know, Marika, and represent like her as like this motherly maternal figure and stuff like that, which, you know, in all likelihood she probably was when they were young. Again, I've said it before, like people devalue a lot this idea that Marika is someone who is, you know, like she doesn't say my beloved children ironically. Like she legitimately does seem to love and care for her kin and progeny. They could argue that's rooted in trauma and tragedy and stuff with her and her own selfish ambitions and all that things, right? Like in guilt maybe. But I think she legitimately, you know, loves and cared for Miquella and Melania as her children and stuff like that, regardless of whatever were the reasons for why they were born. I don't think she ever would have wanted to bring them into this world and intentionally have them be afflicted with any curse or whatever, even assuming she may have suspected that that would be a liable result. And I think she would want to do, you know, I think she would want to lessen their suffering with their curses if possible. So yeah, I think just overall, like looking at everything with that Marika seems to be, and Radigan obviously, because they're two sides of the same coin, I think are more important in Miquella's life, and essentially like the more, you know, they're kind of the weather vane for his character. How he feels about his mother and or father kind of decides the direction that Miquella is going in, right? Everything seems to be a reaction to that. You know, Daddy and I work together hard on fundamentalism. Okay, Dad, fundamentalism isn't really working for me, so I'm going to be doing my own thing with like, you know, the candle tree, future Haley tree, all that jazz. And then at the same time, you have his mother, so it's like, mother, you know, you loved and did so and cared for me. Oh, I see. You feel this way because of, you know, all the tragedy and terrible things that you've done to other people and things like that, right? Like, you know, with like, you know, the Hornset and all that stuff, right? Like, I think all of that kind of combined together kind of gives us a sense of like the direction of where Miquella's going. And then Melania is a bit harder to judge because it looks like the most important character in her life. To some extent, maybe you could argue is Marika, but because Melania just has such a lack of agency and like personal independent ideology and will on what she wants to do and everything like that, it's really hard. Like, I'll be honest, I think the only reason she keeps a great rune is because Miquella would want her to have one and stuff like that, because it could be useful for him if she's another party with a great rune and could at least theoretically, you know, not be working and serving his interests, at least when the Morgan Alliance stuff is going on. So overall, I think that there's like a lot there with Miquella regarding his parents and stuff, but not Godwin. I think people have looked way too deeply into the fact that he obviously puts a lot of work into those who live in death and stuff like that, and don't consider that's because if Miquella wants to create an equitable world for everybody, that also means those who live in death. And if his pure gold order can't even you know, account for those who live in death, and the only option is to try to find a way to suppress them or remove or exterminate them and all that stuff, so he resorts to essentially the fundamentalist method and stuff, where it's like, hey, please have proper true death and all that stuff. I would say the Golden Epitaph and Castle Soul Ritual for those. Yeah, here's the thing. The like I said, with the Epitaph, again, it's the one Epitaph item and stuff like that. And again, it's for the very obvious purpose of serving his, for his order and what he plans and wants to do. And the Castle Soul thing, again, by extension, it's not even talking about Godwin. It's talking about the other soulless demigod, like the soulless demigod at Soul. Like, it's not even seemingly someone that's personable to Miquella, because Miquella doesn't even seem to even, at least the people relate to Miquella, don't even bother trying to like relate to them as brothers or something like that. So, oh, it's a Miquella, it's your older brother or whatever. Like, they just use the term for like friend, comrade, you know, stuff like that, right? Like, they're just like, you know this, because again, probably for Miquella, that demigod was basically a stranger, not really a sibling or family, right? And then we also have to we just have to consider, of course, there's the Haley Tree statue, which people decide is Godwin, even though, like I said, it's very clearly supposed to be Miquella. It's very clearly a woman. The way they portray the lips and stuff is very consistent there. So I have zero expectation that that character is male, let alone Godwin. Let's see. In my opinion, Mikula wanted to help all the NOTBK's victims. Godwin just happened to be one of them. Mikula had no exceptional link to God. NOTBK. Oh, Night of the Black Knife. There we go. Night of the Black Knives victims. Okay, yeah. Like first thing I was like, NOTBK. Like which one is that? No, okay. That took me a little bit. Night of the Black Knives. By the way, that post came out today. God, my mind is so jumbled up. But yeah, that analysis came out today. Again, I feel like the Rykard stuff is probably going to get moved to a Rykard thesis because I think I just like talking about the individual conspirators. I think making Night of the Black Knives focus on mostly just Ronnie, to an extent Malekith and the Black Knives would be fine, but I like the Rykard stuff in there regardless. I think it's good. I only have a few questions now about the Farum Azula temple shard things in the bridge to the Divine Tower and stuff like that, but I think I might have an explanation for those, so we'll see how that goes. And then back to the point being made with Godwin. Yeah, I think at most Mikula might respect Godwin as someone similar to Radon, because as far as we could tell, Godwin seems to have been a well-respected, admired figure in general, but I don't think he ever had a close relationship the same way that Mikula seems to, at the very least, felt he had a close bond with Radon. As far as we know, Mikula and Radon didn't really interact much beyond their childhood or stuff either. Mikula just kind of latched on to him from their one promise they made and stuff like that. It didn't look like they've ever talked or discussed that stuff again. Maybe they like met in passing and things like that, but yeah, I'm not expecting Mikula to be someone who has like this really sort of long you know, deep relationship with Godwin based on what we have. I think people read way too deeply into it. Again, in general, I thought people were thinking that, oh my God, we're gonna get so much more, you know, Prince of Death stuff, and I'm like, we have so much of that already. Like, I would argue we might even have too much stuff related to Godwin and the those who live in death. So I think we're perfectly, we have more than enough of that stuff regarding Godwin and the Death Prince and all that as is. So that's how I feel there. I think it was very clear that people kind of misjudged. They really wanted stuff to be about Godwin because they misread it, and they end up disappointing themselves, even though, as I've said from the beginning, we were never going to have Godwin resurrected as the final boss in Night Reign. That was just not going to happen. Now you know what it's like to learn IT. It's just all acronym where you can't derive any information from names. God, that sounds like hell. Unless Mikula's crush on Radon was from happenstance tastes, perhaps Godwin was already married by the time Mikula was born. We don't know enough about what the demigods' relationships and stuff were like. I think there's also something about maybe Melania being married and having something. I don't remember. I have to go back and check. Either way, I think in general, we just don't know a lot about what the demigods were doing with their lives at the same time. So is it possible that they have relationships and maybe even progeny or something that just aren't relevant to the narrative or whatever, like so they're their own thing? Sure, maybe. I think personally it'd be a bit weird, but I also think it would be weird if America's having all these kids and most of them aren't really having kids of their own. Again, maybe that's just like, oh no, you know, like all the ones who had kids were from the early age of plenty, and you know, demigods after that point, for one reason or another, you know, stop really siring stuff. They just decide they're gonna be mommies, boys and girls. I don't know, maybe that's the idea. Godwin's friendship with Fortissax, a real one, not some cursed Fortissax. He seems to apply to have kindness too. I don't know if that's necessarily just kindness, because we have to also consider that that Godwin is essentially mirroring what Godfrey did with Sarash. So you could very much look at this from the lens of Godwin doing something just because he wants to emulate his dad and not because he's truly someone who's kind. Again, I'm not trying to discount or say that him and Fortissax aren't friends in any real sense, right? It's very clear, at least Fortissax feels like very, you know, deathly loyal to Godwin and stuff after everything. I'm just saying that I would not be someone who would like go so far as to say that, you know, Godwin had purely pure uncomplicated motives for doing what he did. I think you could very much argue that he was doing something because he thought it was, well, one, I think he was personally interested in probably Fortisax and the gold lightning and stuff that he, or well, the red lightning and stuff that he was doing, and the connection to gold and all that stuff. I think that was probably a prime motivating factor. And then he just kind of was curious and wanted to know more about him. And again, I think there was very much this idea of, oh, my dad did this, I kind of want to do that, because again, they show so much about, like, you know, how much Godwin has a certain reverence for the Crucible era and stuff like that. And that was an era that, for at least at its inception, was defined by war and defined, of course, by Godfrey, you know, showing mercy to Sarash and giving him a chance to be brought into the order. So I think Godwin would just want to kind of mirror that on his own. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know about boss Godwin and stuff. Again, that's again, I don't like getting to power scale debates, because I feel like stuff like that will almost always be just decided by the writers one way or another. It doesn't matter if you're the strongest or the weakest or what have you stuff. Again, I find it so funny when people make such a big deal about, like, oh no, but Radon has to be the strongest and stuff, with the whole Morgoth thing hanging over his head. And it's like, listen, we have to consider in context here that nobody knows Morgoth's a demigod, guys. And also in general, I think people also underestimate just how much, like, the importance of, like, Radon doing what he's doing, win or lose, with the stars being held back all at the same time. Like, see, which that's another thing to maybe include in Radon, is the stuff about the meteor strikes that we see happen and things. But again, that'll be something separate. I think we're gonna wrap things up. We've had a decently long stream. I think I've gotten a lot of thoughts out on my head. I'm at a point where, like, yes, there's still a lot of topics to cover. We still have Ancient Civ, Ancient Dynasty, Eternal Cities, Farm Missoula, again, Orders Breaking. We have obviously the Shattering and all that stuff there. We have Rykard, we have Mikola, we have Melania. Are there any other factions I'm thinking? Oh, we can't forget we have the Tarnished and stuff like Gideon and all that stuff. Don't get me wrong, we have a lot of topics and media or whatever, but I feel like we're getting to the point now where, like, a lot of the items, at least in the base game, I'm not going to say the DLC, a lot of that stuff is, like, getting within my grasp, where it's like, okay, I have all these items accounted for, I know where they are and what their relevance is, right? Assuming they are relevant to anything. And I feel a lot better about where our progress and stuff is on this stuff. So, yeah. But can he be Goku? Oh my god, yeah, like the question is like, oh, but can he beat Goku? Too many power scalers don't think about how they even came to their own conclusions. I think the problem with power scaling debates and stuff like that is that people don't consider that ultimately it is arbitrary, because it doesn't matter how powerful you are. The writer is the god and will decide how powerful the character actually is in any given circumstance. And sometimes it's very well reasoned. You're like, you know what, I can understand why that character beat that character. And most of the time it's usually just bullshit. It's like, okay, come on, like, this is so contrived. How the hell do you have this character losing to this character or whatever? Or why is this character now suddenly so weak against this character? Like, how, like, why are we having power, like, put into, like, the stratosphere? Like, it's one of those things. And, like, obviously these characters all exist within their own context specific to their setting and world and stuff like that. So then trying to take them out of their setting or world and being like, for example, what if a character's entire power set is based on, I don't know, magic power in the air, and therefore if you put them on any other planet, they might not even have any powers or something like that. Okay, so now we have to contrive a scenario where, okay, this character, everyone's fighting, okay, on this character's home field advantage or something like that. It's just one of those things where it's like, I would feel much better if we just kind of like stayed with our own lane there. You know, again, people are having fun and, like, you know, talk about all that stuff. Sure, fine, whatever. But I feel like there's just so much, like, just kind of like silliness that comes across there. And I just feel it's overall just becomes a waste of time. But hey, that's just me with another controversial opinion, most likely. Yeah, great one. Night, y'all. Peace.